Apply today at GainAtTrucking.com.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
This is the Hoops Postgame Show brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Nebraska gets it done on the road against the last place team in the Big Ten, thanks in large part to a big first half from Keisei Tominaga. And Nebraska now clinch the double bye. Still looking at that Purdue-Wisconsin score to see maybe Nebraska will be the 4th seed or the 3 seed. Of course, the 3 seed if Purdue wins and the 4 seed if Wisconsin wins. Interesting matchup later in the evening with Illinois and Iowa that could have some implications on that 5 seed, but that's outside of Nebraska's kind of thinking at this point as they have clinched the double bye with an 85-70 victory over Michigan. I'm Jake Bakoven in the 93.7 The Ticket Studios alongside Austin Orman. Austin, what are your initial thoughts from this game? I know you were a little bit worried about this as opposed to when Michigan came to Nebraska because of Doug McDaniel. We saw why in the first half, but Nebraska was able to get start running away in the second.
We did see why in the first half. The thing for Nebraska was that they made Doug McDaniel try to take over that game. 17 points to lead Michigan, 5 of 7 from 3-point range. He's got a burner on him. We know that. We know he can fill it up pretty quickly. Even the 5 assists, that's okay over 40 minutes. He had half of Michigan's 10 assists, but his 17 points came on 13 shots. He went 1 of 6 on 2s, and he didn't get from the free throw line. That you absolutely take that if you're in Nebraska in 33 minutes. You look at Williams with 14, efficient from 3 in the free throw line, but again, just 1 of 7 on 2s. Much better, interior kind of defense than I think we've seen from Nebraska. Even you don't have to look at blocks. I mean, yes, Nebraska had more blocks on the game 3-2, but I think Nebraska made Michigan fall into that trap of play one-on-one ball. The defensive rotations were maybe the crispest we've seen on the road since Indiana as a whole. So yeah, Michigan put up 43 points in the first half. I credit most of that, though, to, like you're saying, McDaniel just going off. He hit some tough ones, got a couple easy ones as well, but Nebraska really tightened things up. And you can kind of see that as you break it down across the two halves, Bach. The first half, 50-43, that's a Michigan style of half. Previous years, I don't necessarily trust Nebraska to keep pace in a game like that, but the Huskers were staggeringly efficient. 21 of 30 in the first half. They shot 70% in the first half. You don't see that a lot from Nebraska teams, but then when Nebraska had the 7-point lead, they stretch it out to 15. They get up to 20 at one point. The hope was that Michigan would just roll over and go away. They didn't. They had an 8-0 run. They cut it back to 12. But Nebraska did a good job of then slowing the pace down. And you just look at, the numbers in the second half. Nebraska, 12 of 27, 44%, only 1 of 9 from 3. But Michigan, 7 of 29 and 1 of 13 from 3. If the first half was a Michigan half, the second half was a Nebraska half. And Nebraska won both halves, playing both ways. And I think that goes to what we've said about this team all year, is that because it's not relying on one person or one style of play, it's versatile and can beat you in, a couple different ways.
Well, and it's interesting, just again, as opposed to other teams. I think it's been much talked about the article in the Omaha World Herald, kind of asking if this is the best Nebraska basketball team that they've put out there. And I think unanimously, I think the answer is pretty much, well, we'll see, right? Like, I mean, you've got some stuff to prove here. As we know, some of those teams in the early 90s, one of them finished in the top 10. So, I mean, you've got different ways to argue. But, of course, if they win a tournament game, that will put them in a spot. And if they do, like the women have done, and make it to the Big Ten championship game, that'll certainly raise their profile a bit. By the way, update on that. As it's been an interesting day to be a Husker. You've got, of course, the Nebraska-Michigan game to watch, one eye on on kind of the Wisconsin-Purdue game, and then you still got to pay attention to Nebraska and Iowa. Nebraska's led a lot of the way, had a 12-2 run to really get a lead there late against Iowa. And now, but Iowa came back, sent it to overtime. Now Nebraska, though, is up 84-82. We have a few minutes to go, 2 or 3 minutes to go here in overtime. So we'll see what happens there. That could be quite a great story and a magical run for Nebraska women's basketball. The men, for them to kind of do the same thing here, as you see it, It's kind of interesting because I was looking forward at the kind of, the matchups afterwards and who are you going to face. You're going to, if you're the 3 seed or the 5, the 4 seed. And it's still kind of that in between, like, middle stuff. Like, would you rather play, like, or would you that much rather have Purdue in the championship bracket rather than beat them in the semifinal? I'm not sure. Because, I mean, and it's kind of the same thing. And this isn't to downgrade any sort of success that Nebraska, like, likely moving up to the 3 spot. And that will be a big kind of offseason story talking point. But just as I look at it, if you're getting Iowa or Michigan State, and, by the time they see you after the double bye, you're going to have a pretty good team there waiting for you one way or the other.
You absolutely will. Iowa playing for its tournament life. Michigan State maybe in that conversation, but probably just playing for seeding. Wisconsin, should you face them later down the road, they've got a lot at stake. So I think my general theory on it is, yes, the top half of the bracket with the 1 seed is harder initially, because if you're the 4, you win your first round matchup, the 1 does, you run into them first. But the flip side of that is you pass that. Technically, that's supposed to be the toughest test in the conference. So from there, it should be, and not that it's going to be easy, but at least according to the seed lines, easier to some degree, which is why if you look at the NCAA tournament, would you rather be a 7 or in a 7-10 matchup or an 8-9 matchup? Well, yeah, if you win the 8-9, you get the 1 right away. But then hypothetically, you're matching up with a 4 or 5 if you get past the 1, which is probably easier than a 2 or a 3 most years. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. There are only, at this point, good teams left on Nebraska's schedule, barring something absolutely crazy happening in the Big Ten tournament. So no, you can't really complain either way about who Nebraska gets. Plenty of opportunities too, I think, to improve that resume. Does Nebraska get up to an 8 seed if they win their first game in the Big Ten tournament? Probably not. If they win 2, I could see it. I really could.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's exciting time ahead for Nebraska basketball as we all start kind of looking at the seeding and the impact of each one of these games, some of which Nebraska plays in, some of which they don't. But yeah, I mean, I altogether, closing out this season with 22 wins, 12 in conference play. Just a magical run. And that's another talking point. Again, a part of this we can go in game, but this was a bit of a blowout, and we'll get to that a little bit more. But a lot of this is kind of big picture discussion. If you were paying attention to the broadcast in the second half, it kind of evolved into that because the game wasn't particularly close. So they talked about the Omaha World Herald article, if this is the best Nebraska team ever. Another thing they touched on is Fred Hoiberg being the Big Ten Coach of the Year. And certainly I think that's not only in play, but he'd have to be the betting favorite at this point. I thought a good point was made by the broadcast team there, in that, Matt Painter is anytime you're the number 1 team in the conference by a few games, you've got an argument, but he had the National Player of the Year returning. And that's what's pretty much the top of the Big Ten, is building off of success from last year. Wisconsin, maybe to the least degree, but they were in the NIT Final Four last year. Illinois, Northwestern, these teams in already, in NCAA tournament, that Northwestern even getting a tournament win last year. So, I mean, but when you look at just kind of the top teams, the teams you expect to contend when we play this tournament in Minneapolis, everybody but Nebraska was kind of supposed to be there. And so I think that pretty much tells you the story of how the Coach of the Year voting should go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The argument for Painter, like you're saying, is he won the Big Ten by most likely, I'm going to say 2 games, maybe probably 3. I guess both Illinois and Purdue would be favored to win. So he won the Big Ten by 3 games. Okay, congratulations, good job. You also probably have the best, most rounded team, so you just didn't screw it up necessarily. Which, yeah, sure, there's something to be said for that. Underwood in Illinois, yeah, fine, 2nd place in the Big Ten, but we knew you were going to be a top 4 team. My 2nd place vote would probably go to Collins, which is kind of weird to say. But I think the Ty Berry injury, the way he handled that, and the fact that they didn't just tank after they lost one of their starting guards is kind of a big deal. Had Wisconsin, made a run into the top 2, I could see an argument for Greg Gard, but they've been so cold recently. Honestly, Fran McCaffrey has a case too. I thought Iowa was going to be substantially worse than they have been. They found a way to put it together. Will finish no worse than 500 in conference play, 18 or 19 wins on the regular season. That is much better than I thought Iowa was going to be. You look up and down that roster, you don't see a Keegan Murray. You don't see a Chris Murray. You don't see a Luka Garza or anyone like that. So I thought Iowa would take a year to kind of regroup. And no, it's not as good as they have been. This is still a solid year and a solid Iowa team that, honestly, Bach, I think Nebraska wants another crack at.
Yeah.
Not Izzo, clearly not any. Maybe Ben Johnson, but Minnesota ended up, below 500 in conference play. I don't know if we're going to get into this later, so if we are, feel free to stop me. But Nebraska being picked 11th in the preseason poll, I get it, but I don't. I think for my money, it was, oh, yep, looks like Nebraska went heavy in the transfer portal again. We've seen how this works for Fred Hoiberg. Sorry, guys, Derek Walker's gone. That's probably your best player. I don't think the media knew what to do with Nebraska. I'm not going to say it's anti-Nebraska bias or anything. I'm sure that, the name brand or lack thereof for Nebraska factored into it to some degree. But I don't think anyone knew what to expect from this team. Before the year, I said, okay, if you're finishing 6th place, that's good. That's a step in the right direction, right? You probably just beat the right teams, hold the right tiebreakers. 6th through 10th was kind of my expectation for this team. And then next year is going to be the year to jump off. But for this team to go from where it was last year, still in the first 4, of the Big Ten tournament, all the way up to a double bye and not just scraping by, like pretty clearly deserved a top 4 seed and earned, the number 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament. That's huge. That's a huge step in the right direction for this team. And now I think this is going to make, the preseason prognosticators go over Nebraska's roster with just a little bit more of a critical eye so they don't get burned like this again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you too. I think there was kind of a local feeling that last year was a step forward and that they could build off of it coming into this season. But I understand, like, if you're just covering the Big Ten as a whole and you take a step back and you see Nebraska, like, okay, they won some games, they did lose some parts, but they were 500 last year. Lost to Minnesota in the Big Ten tournament. I can understand why there wasn't a complete buy-in and belief, and part of that's just kind of the history that Nebraska has as a program. Hoiberg's run so far with Nebraska, so I can understand it. I do agree with you a little bit there, though, that I think there were higher expectations, even as opposed to recent Hoiberg teams and Hoiberg seasons from within the state and around the program. So I think that's interesting. One other one that, as I watch Ohio State and Rutgers tip off here, when Ohio State with an early lead, one other name that might make his way into the Big Ten coaching race if he had a little bit more time is Jake Diebler. If they win Ohio State, that'd be 4 out of 5 that they would have won since he took over, including that victory over Purdue, certainly the victory over Nebraska, a victory over Michigan State. Michigan and Rutgers would be as a whole. So that's kind of interesting. I don't think they were planning on even considering an interim route long-term at Ohio State, but they might have to kind of rethink some things there.
Yes, absolutely. Credit to Jake Diebler for coaching his way out of the first day in Minneapolis. I'm going to take away my nomination for Ben Johnson's down ballot coach of the year votes for screwing up the Big Ten West on top of the Big Ten East in the men's basketball standing. We had that for so long, where the top 7 in the conference was the Big Ten West. Revenge of the Big Ten West. We're here, baby. We did it. We made it. And then Minnesota went on a losing skid, and Michigan State and Indiana won a game. So, dang it, Ben Johnson. It's supposed to be Big Ten West through and through. How dare you?
Yeah, still not a bad year for Minnesota, all things considered.
No,
but yeah, you're right. For the Big Ten West, if you followed the Big Ten West, they would fail before the end of it. But that's more football than basketball. Once again, Nebraska with an 85-70 win. A lot of big picture talk as we open things up here on the Hoops postgame show. Action, plumbing, heating, AC, and electrical. It is a fun time of the season. It's weird. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. If you come from, and I'm 33 years old, I remember a little bit of the Danny Nee era, and anybody that went through the early 90s into that will not have the same feeling. But I said this before, because it's been one tournament appearance in 25 years or whatever it is, that it feels weird. Like I'm so used to Selection Sunday and don't even think about not even thinking about Nebraska. It's almost like a different sport or part of it, where it's like, all right, let's get through the Big Ten tournament's kind of the big deal. Maybe if they get a couple wins, they go to the NIT most years. And then, so it's going to be weird and refreshing for just, again, the second time in 20 plus years for Selection Sunday to have something like your team sitting
You're
there waiting
actually making
to see
plans.
What's gonna happen. Yeah.
Sitting on pins and needles, just waiting.
Yeah. Of course, we've traded that in for not making plans for bowl games recently. So it's just a changing of how I grew up and how I remember a lot of things. But that will be exciting as well. What do you think the key was to Keisei Tominaga going off today? And certainly, by the way, as he finishes with 30 points, it was a bigger first half, but his spacing and attention needed to draw him in the second half, helped Nebraska as well.
It absolutely did. Nebraska did a good job getting him free early. And then Michigan forgot about him multiple times, or, even if they didn't forget, they weren't close enough to him multiple times in transition. As dangerous as Keisei is in the half court and improving Nebraska's spacing and sneaking through the lane and operating the pick and roll, he is at his most dangerous in transition. Whether he has numbers or whether you're dropping three guys back into the paint and Nebraska's at a numbers disadvantage, someone has to be up hand high on him. Someone has to be in the lane. Someone has to be reading that cross-court skip pass. On the day for Keisei Tominaga, you mentioned the 30 points, 6 rebounds, a couple assists as well. He's at his best in transition because he's so creative, because he has the ability to pull up from so far away. Transition gives him essentially a blank canvas to operate with. If you're Michigan, you have to show him something. You can't show him blank canvas. Make a decision. Either run at him, make him give the ball up, take everyone else away, and make him, waltz all the way into the lane, or at least have a chance, to maybe body him up and block his shot. But too often, Michigan didn't have a plan for him in transition. They didn't necessarily hustle back all the time. When they did, it was just kind of, Nebraska's getting into half. Oh, crap, it's Keisei. We got to do something. It was too little too late for Michigan. And Keisei is so good at recognizing those little advantages, which is how, even with his stature, he's able to get so many of those shots off.
Well, it's interesting. I thought in this game, too, the total tally for fast break points was Nebraska 2 and Michigan 0. And yeah, there wasn't like a whole lot of like open court steals or anything like that, but there was a lot of, especially just kind of going downhill half court offense that kind of looked a little fast break. But I suppose it didn't quite meet that mark. But that's a lot of kind of what Keisei Tominaga was doing today is penetrating. Not often, you wonder if he could be able to find teammates and maybe do a little bit more of that later. But he's often going in there to score and find unique ways to score. Mm-hmm. And so, as there's all these comparisons and calling him the Japanese Steph Curry and all that, it's I think a big part of it's kind of similar to the way that people see Steph Curry, where it's just like, all-time 3-point shooting champion. And that's the biggest profile on him. But the other part of it, in case he's got ways to go to get to the ball handling level of Steph Curry, but the unique ways of finishing at the bucket is certainly a big part of his game.
It absolutely is. He's crafty, low key, kind of wiry, strong to some degree too. Yes, he can be, bumped off his spots just because he's smaller. Yes, you can, foul him hard enough to make sure he doesn't get it up, but it doesn't seem like teams consistently take the be physical approach with him when he has the ball in the lane. And that helps a guy like him. If you're going to foul him, you got to really knock him off course, because if you just kind of nudge him, he's creative enough, he's crafty enough, he's got such an innate understanding of touch and angles that it's not going to do a whole lot of good. If you're going to foul Keisei Tominaga, you got to foul him. Don't let him get the ball up, or really make sure you discourage or, knock the shot off course. Teams haven't necessarily been that physical with Keisei Tominaga in the lane. Maybe that's game plan. I think some of it, too, is how Keisei Tominaga does manipulate the defense. Yes, he'll get to the rim, but he also likes that in-between floater, something like that wrong step floater, mostly with his left hand, occasionally with his right. But again, just goes back to he's creative. And if you give him that space to be creative, hey, here's 2 points for you.
Yeah, and I love it, too. I mean, because we've seen him a few times on an inbounds pass. It happened again today where the defense is so worried about him running that you just kind of, and they're getting low, you just kind of throw it over the top in case for a second feels big. It's not necessarily that he is, but getting those points, in the post out of a under the basket pass, it's that's reminiscent of a big man. So he's got a lot of creative ways to get going. Do you feel like, along with Alec, who deserves a lot of credit today, 6 of 6 from the floor, I believe 5 rebounds, 15 points. He's got a pretty good matchup with Michigan altogether. He had a pretty good first round against them as well. That's a few guys that I think you're feeling are hitting their stride at the right time. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that about everybody on the roster. So there's some positives, some negatives here, and all together kind of the ebb and flow of basketball. But how big of that do you think it is for what many people see as their glue guy, Alec, kind of really, we said he's kind of defined his role throughout the season, but I for a lot of the time, I was just kind of thinking he's got a lot of power and athleticism, what you want, but it's not controlled. It seems a little bit more controlled over the last 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, like there's some direction to it. There's a purpose behind a lot of his movements. I'm going to throw Juwan Gary into this conversation as well. Those two guys combined for 21 points on 10 of 12 shooting. They went a combined 4 of 6 at the free throw line. They both only missed one free throw, but also combined for 12 rebounds. When we get into tournament play, when we see Nebraska, whether it's against, whoever it is in their quarterfinal matchup, should they win in the semis against probably Illinois or Purdue, the teams that they play are going to make Juwan Gary and Josiah Alec beat them. It was Keisei Tominaga in the first half. Bad defensive game plan for Michigan. That's why they are in the cellar of the Big Ten. They let Keisei Tominaga beat them in the first half. And yeah, they made a run, but it was too late. Because then once they started dedicating some of that focus to Keisei Tominaga, it opened up lanes for Josiah Alec, right? They got him the ball in the mid post or on the wing. He's quicker than Terrace Reed Jr. He's probably, as quick, if not slightly quicker than Shedder, but definitely more athletic. And I think he bodied him under the hole a couple times as well. So you gave him easy one-on-one opportunities with an advantage. The other important stat as I look at this here, Bach, those two guys combined were 0 of 1 from 3. That means they weren't settling. Teams are going to make Rink Mast drive and kick. They're going to make Bryce Williams settle in the mid-range or kick it out. Keisei Tominaga, they're going to run off the three-point line, say, okay, either take your floater or kick it to an Alec or a Gary in the corner. That's where Nebraska has to be creative in its action and make sure as often as possible you have Alec or Gary kind of in that short corner waiting for a dump-off pass where they have 2 reads. If there's the help is up in the air or far across the court, okay, it's one dribble, I'm at the rim. Or if the help is there, it's okay, someone else is coming into double from the weak side, skip pass out to a better shooter. We know Juwan Gary can get hot. It's not necessarily his game. I thought he took a lot of smart shots. Josiah Alec, same way. Those guys played their roles to the best of their ability and were put in good situations. Yeah, sure, partly because of Michigan's just refusal to play defense, but there were opportunities. They could have taken some quick shots or ones that they've hit before, but they waited. They worked for better ones.
Yeah, it was a good game altogether for Nebraska. Their offense altogether on the evening, 33 of 57 from the floor. Again, 33 made buckets. That's a new season high for this Husker team. So really hitting on all cylinders offensively. We can talk a little bit more about the defensive side. We can talk a little bit more about another road win for Nebraska. We got plenty more to talk about on the Hoops Post Game Show, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Before we throw it to break, real quick, did want to mention Nebraska women's basketball does come up just short to Iowa today. Overtime it took, but Iowa won 94-89 over the Huskers, and so Iowa is the Big Ten tournament champs. Nevertheless, Nebraska, very good performance out there, and we'll see if it might impact their seeding. They might move up another seed. They're kind of in that 8-9 range as well, so we'll kind of see pretty soon how that affects Nebraska women's basketball seeding moving forward. Plenty more to talk here on the Hoops Post Game Show. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Spring is here. It's time to get back outside and into proper shoes this year. Brown Shoe Fit is the place to buy this spring with their sale on athletic shoes. Get $15 off any regular price athletic shoes with respected brands like Hoka, Brooks, New Balance, and On Running. And don't forget, Browns carries a large arrangement of sizes and widths to fit your feet properly. Start your spring off right at Brown Shoe Fit, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln.
People always ask, what are Jake and Sip like when they're off the air? Well, the answer probably won't surprise you.
Hey, Jake, your Honda's looking a little dirty.
Says the guy whose license plate is barely visible.
I mean, do you even care about that thing anymore?
It gets a little uncomfortable. Now, that's when I jump in.
Hey, whoa. Mark, did you get a new car?
Nope, just took my car down to Nebraska Auto Detail. Joe and the staff made the outside and the inside look amazing. Maybe you guys need to go. Okay, wise guy.
Settle down, Jake.
Book your appointment today at NebraskaAutoDetail.com.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top shelf liquor to crowd favorite beer, Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
Houses? They're expensive. And once you buy one, you're kind of stuck with it for a while. You need to make sure you get your best house for the best price. You need Ben Bleicher and his team of pros at Professional Realty Group. They'll take the time to figure out what's important for you in your dream home, and they have the expertise to find the hidden issues that could surprise you after the sale. That's professional knowledge, proactive service. We call that potential. Ben Bleicher and the team at Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway's Home Service Ambassador. Find more online at prg-ne.com.
Garage doors can be expensive. Are you keeping yours in the best condition possible? This is Cameron Hall with Doors Plus. Doors Plus is a locally owned business that prides itself on the fast, reliable, and friendly service. Doors Plus offers flexible scheduling so you can book an appointment that fits your busy day. My team and I will come out to your property, both commercial and residential, and provide you with the necessary information you need to make sure your garage door is in working and smooth condition. Give Doors Plus a call today at 402-590-5800 to book an appointment and learn more about our preventative maintenance plans. Doors Plus, garage doors, and more.
Hello, this is Mary Pat Waite. I've had the privilege of working with Lincoln families as their realtor for more than 31 years, and I'm so proud to be associated with MP Dodge Real Estate. For me, your transaction is unique in its own way. My experience allows me to bring you trusted care and a really great outcome. My NP Dodge family shares the same client focus.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
Liberty Law Group is committed to the defense of liberty for those accused and the pursuit of justice for those injured. Liberty Law Group's relentless trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and personal injury law. We believe in treating every client with respect, compassion, and understanding. We know that navigating the legal system is stressful and overwhelming, but Liberty Law Group will carry that burden for you. When you're facing legal issues, make the right call. 877-42-LIBERTY. That's 877-42-LIBERTY.
If you're in Seward or Milford, listen up. Select Plumbing is now servicing your area with no trip charges from Lincoln. Select Plumbing works on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet and fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate, 402-560-6197. It's not just Lincoln, Waverly, and the surrounding area anymore. It's also Seward and Milford with no trip charges. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
We are back here on the Hoops Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Celebrating a season-ending, regular season-ending, I should say, victory for Nebraska, 85-70 over Juwan Howard and the Michigan Wolverines in Ann Arbor. Another road victory. That's 2 out of 3 now for Nebraska on the road. So maybe you feel a little bit better about Nebraska being able to win away from Pinnacle Bank Arena. Austin, how much does that still kind of creep into your mind at this point, now that Nebraska's won a couple of them?
I mean, yeah, it's still, this was a true road game that Nebraska handled, I think, better than they would have before. But from here on out, it's neutral road for the other team too. So it's going to be interesting to see how Nebraska handles that. They've only had one neutral site game this year. Of course, Oregon State up at the Pentagon. Nebraska probably won't face anyone as bad as Oregon State, from here on out. So I'm curious to see how they handle that. But I'm not as worried just because, again, neutral is different than road. Not as good as home, not as bad as on the road. So, you got your second win in the conference, on the road today. You took care of business, did what you have to do. And that's really more what I'm looking at. Did Nebraska play with the energy it needed to win the game? Yes, pretty much throughout. Did Nebraska step up and make key plays in big moments? Yes, they did. So not really much of a concern, but okay, pack your bags. You're away from home the rest of the year.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I think maybe it just got to the point where the the numbers were stacking up against them. They were like, okay, this has to be something. It's kind of interesting, the neutral deal. Like at the Pentagon, that was like playing at your friend's driveway. Like, yeah, it's
Right.
not home court, but you played. I don't want to say you played there, but the crowd was like 90% Nebraska or whatever.
Mhm.
This crowd's kind of interesting too. If you're just going to give it the true away game, like yes, it was, but Michigan's given up on their basketball season 2 or 3 months ago. There's. They broadcasted a good job of not showing how little people were there at the event, but looking on Twitter and from the people that were there, not especially great turnout for this game. Which again, I think you got to give credit to Nebraska for being able to find their own energy. Like even shutting up the opposing crowd sometimes can kind of get you going. But if there is no opposing crowd, it can feel less important than what this game was. And Nebraska did a good job. Like you said, the gameplay kind of felt like what we usually see from Nebraska at home.
Any guesses on what the official attendance was?
Do they have it?
They have it.
I was hearing a couple hundred. I would say, but they do tickets sold and all that. 4,000
Listed at 11,000.
Listed at 11,000. Okay.
I'm going to say I don't believe it because it is rumored to hold 12,700. But speaking of the Chrysler Center, in a year of streaks, Nebraska ended another one. They never won in Ann Arbor before today. Yes, you took advantage of the worst Michigan team in probably the last 15 years at least. But hey, that's another streak down. Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue to some degree even. Almost had Illinois.
And
now
Kansas State was even on
Kansas
there.
State was on there as well. So, bad Michigan aside, hey, there's another streak that check that box off.
Yeah. A big win for Nebraska. A game that was bigger for Nebraska than it was for Michigan, and Nebraska ultimately looked like it. But I think a big part of this too was like Michigan came out firing, and sometimes Nebraska, even this year, has kind of gone on your 3 or 4 minute streaks of not being able to find the bucket. That was kind of nice about watching Michigan come out of the gate, kind of hitting everything. Normally your kind of alarms go off and you're thinking, oh no, it's not Nebraska's day. But you just kind of waited a few more minutes after Michigan got off to a hot start. Nebraska was in the lead. I mean, because they had the hot start as well. Like we said, ended up shooting 70% from the field in the first half. So it turned out to that, that's one way to do it. But of course, you didn't know that as Michigan was hitting those threes and just kind of making everything early. It's not that I expected, like when that was going on, it wasn't like this big, oh no, Nebraska's in trouble today. It was kind of, okay, they need to settle in, but we know with how quickly some of these guys, especially Tominaga, if he gets going, how quickly Nebraska is able to just as easily as, or I shouldn't say as easily or as often as they sometimes go on scoreless streaks, they can go on some pretty big scoring streaks themselves.
Michigan got out to an 8-2 lead in the first minute and 36 seconds of the game. Nebraska had the lead with 14 and a half minutes to go. That's a pretty quick response. And yeah, they were essentially trading buckets, and you see just the stair steps there. But Nebraska went on a bit of a run too, to open up at 1 point, a 6-point lead, an 8-point lead of its own. And then you felt like, okay, Nebraska's in control. When's Michigan going to make its run? It did late in the first half, cut it all the way down to 3 at 46-43 after one of those, McDaniel jumpers. But then Nebraska scores 4 points in the last minute 53 of the first half and holds Michigan without a point. It was a layup and a layup for Nebraska from Wilcher and then from Alec. So Nebraska did a good job going into halftime and then coming out. Yes, the teams traded buckets there for a couple minutes, but then, you get the Michigan timeout before the U16 would have hit. Nebraska did a great job of answering Michigan's first couple possessions, then really bearing down, right? Forcing it, I think, a turnover in there, a couple missed shots, and then capitalizing, right? That's how these runs happen is, you scored, the other team doesn't. Yeah. Basketball 101. I get it. But Nebraska could have allowed that second half to turn into a track meet like the first half. And I think that would have played into Michigan's hands. But you saw Nebraska do that really quick spurt. Michigan calls a timeout, and there's a concerted effort after that to play smart, to play under control, that I don't think previous Nebraska teams would have necessarily taken that opportunity.
And I think a big part of that too is, like you said, kind of changing up how they went. I think their defense probably got better in the second half. In the first half, again, a lot of it is just in just Nebraska's strategy altogether. Is if you're going to hit your shots, then you're going to hit your shots. And so Nebraska has this kind of doubling the baseline, make sure you're not driving right by and getting an easy deuce. Now that did happen a few times, some miscommunication and whatnot. Do you like that strategy? They're not going to change it. They've been doing it for 2 years. Do you like that strategy heading into the tournament play, or you kind of get worried about, these are better teams, maybe better shooting teams as we get going into it?
We've seen better shooting teams have off nights, right? We've seen, some hot shooting Iowa teams, some good shooting Purdue teams go cold against Nebraska. To me, yes, the shooting around everything is key. I'm still slightly worried about Nebraska's perimeter defense and their ability to consistently contain those explosive guards. They've done a pretty good job all year, but we saw Creighton with their movement and then the explosiveness on top of it took it to another gear that Nebraska didn't match, and that was even at home. A good passing big man will be able to beat Nebraska because Nebraska's traps aren't huge. If it's Josiah Alec, the big man, has probably an inch or two of height on him. If it's Rink Mast, it's probably better, but I like Josiah Alec in a trap a little bit more than Rink Mast with his athleticism. So then what Nebraska has to do is figure out what's the adjustment. Is the other team bringing a cutter from the weak side to flash to the ball? Are they spreading the floor with a guy in the corner, a guy on the wing, and a guy at the top of the key? So Nebraska's playing 2-on-3 there. Typically what you do is you leave the furthest pass available. So, that would be take away the guy at the top of the key, take away the skip pass, make the big man in the short corner on the block, make that pass out to the opposite corner. That's a tough pass to make. If he starts making it, then okay, you fly down to the corner, and then you just have essentially playing 1-on-2. Have that guy in the middle, but don't gamble, but be aggressive, I think is how Nebraska's going to have to cover up for that. You can't allow yourself to get diced up, right? Especially if you run into a team that moves the ball well and hits a lot of threes, but you can't also change your identity this late in the season. Nebraska can't just go trap just to say, oh, we trapped. Oh, we doubled just to get the ball out of the hands. What's the purpose? It's so a guy like Zach Edey doesn't score 30 points on 14 possessions on you, something like that. So yes, they're going to keep doubling. They just have to make sure they're doing it with a purpose. And those backside guys, whether it's the 2 or the 1, have to make sure they know what their assignment is and that hustle out of the trap.
Yeah, I think a lot of times if you're leaving to double, obviously part of it is, is forcing the pass, but you've got to be disruptive if you're leaving. If you just, and sometimes that's kind of your concern when you think about specifically like an Edey or somebody that's big, like, and Tominaga as great as he is offensively, kind of when he's doubling, it's a pest. It's there, but it's not something that's going to be overbearing. So I mean, you got to make sure to try to do everything you can to either cut off lanes or get a hand on the ball or whatever when you go to double there. But Nebraska, it's been something that's worked out well, and I think for the season now, as we look back at it, and there's been times when it's been frustrating and it doesn't always work. But I think specifically when you think about this team as a whole, and again, we're talking about as one of the better teams in Nebraska basketball history, like individually, they don't have the personnel like just to straight up guard you. And for most teams have an advantage just playing one-on-one defense. So I think you got to give a lot of credit for the staff for sticking with that and finding a way to make this defense more disruptive as a whole than it is with some of its parts.
Absolutely. And that's where Nebraska's okay if you want to go one-on-one with them. They want to win 3-point math and free throw math. If you get to the rim, that's a problem. But that's where Nebraska's team defense concepts is you'll see a guy get beat on the perimeter, big man steps up, weak side corner guy. Their job then is to get in front of the big man who's there for the dump off, which then leaves the backside wing down to sprint to the corner, and hopefully that gives everyone else enough time to read the play, to react to it, and then recover back out. It's scramble drill is essentially what it is. So, yeah, Jamarcus Lawrence can hound the ball. Bryce Williams has decent length. Juwan Gary's okay on the perimeter. But we've seen Nebraska get beat off the dribble quite a bit. So if that's going to be the case, number one, don't allow a parade to the rim, right? Prevent layups, make them take tough mid-range shots. You can live with that. That's why Nebraska doesn't take a lot of them. They just try to win with math, essentially, is what it is. But if you're going to, again, allow that initial penetration, you have to be so good off the ball, in sync, communicating, crossing each other out, making sure everyone knows what the next move is, and making it even a half step earlier than you think you might have to, because you've played 31 games right now. You've seen everyone in the conference, especially in the Big Ten tournament. You should know what their actions are and what your next step should be in any given possession. Go make that step.
Let's go ahead and go to the phone lines. Bruce, if you are still there, let us know your thoughts here on the Hoops Postgame show. Bruce, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey guys, I just wanted to say, all season, like, there's ups and downs. There's there's games that we could have had. Obviously didn't go our way, but I believe you said this, I don't know, a bunch of times, Bach, that this team, if they play together and play the defense that they know they can play, this team, can absolutely like dismantle a team real quick. Obviously Michigan is just, they're just on a bad down year, and we went out there, we got our road win, which is great. I still think that Nebraska needs to keep making better decisions on passing the ball. They did a great job today, but when it comes down to playing these good teams, like you guys say, if you're making these mistakes, to a Purdue, they're going to destroy you. And I'm proud of the guys. I'm very happy with this team. I hope that we can keep going for another month, and who knows, we could be one of those teams that hits like the Sweet 16. So go Huskers, man! Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Bruce. Thanks for listening all year long and contributing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the feeling too, is Nebraska enters Big Ten tournament play, and then the NCAA tournament after that, as that is all but a sure thing now, is that they feel like a dangerous team, and especially in the Big Ten, like they're still hot. I know they did lose that game to Ohio State or whatever, but they're still one of the hotter teams in the Big Ten. They've all got their roles kind of figured out, and there's just a variety of ways that they can beat you. So, I mean, and from different guys, that's another big part of this, is that they play an 8-man lineup, and pretty much any one of those 8 guys can get going if they need to. Maybe with the exception of Sam Hoiberg, I don't think we've seen him necessarily go off, but obviously he can.
He was their leading scorer first game of the year, Bob.
Was he? That's right.
Yeah, against Lindenwood.
So he was part of it, part of the leading scorer at one point in time. And I've said for a long time, like he takes about 2 or 3 shots per game. I wonder what his role will be as he grows more in the system, if he's going to be able to be asked, I should say, to take more of those shots in the next couple of years. But I'm pretty confident that if needed to, and he took 8 or 9 shots a game, he would, his numbers would go up. So, they've got their 8-man rotation very solid. Let's take a quick break. We've got a few seconds to collect our thoughts real quick here. One update here from Purdue and Wisconsin, about 15 seconds left. So this one's all but over. Nebraska's all but clinched the 3 seed because Purdue is up 78-70 on Wisconsin. So we'll talk about what that means next for the Huskers on the Hoops Postgame show. Once again, Nebraska with a 15-point victory, 85-70 over the Michigan Wolverines. We'll be back after this.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top shelf liquor to crowd favorite beer, Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
24/7 threat monitoring, expert tech support, streamlined communications. Allo has a solution for that. Protect your business with Allo Business. Comprehensive firewall security, Microsoft Teams voice integrated communications, cybersecurity and IT support managed by experts. From productivity to peace of mind, Allo has a solution for that. Allo means business. Protect your business by visiting allofiber.com/business.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest, quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
At Southeast Community College, community is our middle name. Our continuing education classes offer personal interest, traffic safety and licensing, online learning, and adult education classes across Southeast Nebraska or online in your own home. Learn to ride a motorcycle, how to start a small business, how to dance, or take a course to advance in your current career path. See the full schedule of continuing education classes online at southeast.edu/continuing. SCC, your path to possible.
Although we can't control the air we breathe outside our home, we can make a healthy difference inside. And all it takes is a call to Bryant. With healthy air options, Bryant can help you eliminate allergens, odors, and harmful chemicals, all while controlling indoor humidity levels at the same time. If it's time for a breath of fresh air inside, it's time to call Bryant. Breathe easy, breathe healthy. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111. We do whatever it takes.
In every office, there's two types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday. You lost Wednesday. You're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe.
Spring is here. It's time to get back outside and into proper shoes this year. Brown Shoe Fit is the place to buy this spring with their sale on athletic shoes. Get $15 off any regular price athletic shoes with respected brands like Hoka, Brooks, New Balance, and On Running. And don't forget, Browns carries a large arrangement of sizes and widths to fit your feet properly. Start your spring off right at Brown Shoe Fit, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln. You can get diesel anywhere, but what about Atomic Diesel? That comes from Stern. Atomic Diesel is your solution to all your cold weather problems. Prevent clogged fuel filters, increase your fuel economy, and save money with Atomic Diesel. Contact Roger at Stern today by calling 1-800-477-2744 to see how Atomic Diesel and the rest of their line of fuels and lubricants can keep your operation running at max capacity.
Old School with DP and J.
Do you think it's too early to talk about Patrick Mahomes as the greatest of all time? You know, to be honest with you, I think he might be on ahead of the pace. It was definitely on pace, maybe ahead of the pace. I think right now everything that he does is going to get overblown, and I think people so quickly forgot the 20-year run of the Patriots. Not 5-6 years, 20-year run of Tom Brady and the Patriots.
93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We're back here on the Hoops Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Thanks again to Action for sticking with us yet another year, and the best year, I have to say, of our postgame shows so far, because Nebraska is tournament bound in a few different ways, few different tournaments. 22-9 finishing the season with a 12-8 conference record. Of course, that one loss in non-con coming to Creighton. But that, as we look at it, coming into the year again, the expectations have moved and changed, and it kind of, just kind of think before this latest run of winning 4 out of 5 or whatever they're on right now we thought we would be sitting here bubble watching so much, like is Nebraska going to quite make it? They put themselves in a position that we don't have to be nervous about the bubble. Certain things can kind of change. Kansas State's win over Iowa State last night will probably help Nebraska in as far as their resume itself goes. So there's still some kind of fun to look and to do as we get into this. But Nebraska, a secure spot in the NCAA tournament, just feels good right now. And you think overall, a campaign with less than, not in double-digit losses, when in the first couple of years under Fred Hoiberg, it was tough to get double-digit wins.
Yeah. And it's been a long 5 years in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
It really has felt like this should have been here previously, but it's here now. And I hope that Husker fans are able to take a little bit of a step back and appreciate the journey for what it was, because you can look at different coaches in different sports, not just at Nebraska, but all across the country, that have gone down guns a-blazing, that empty the tank and say, nope, we're doing it this way. This is what you hired me to do. Fred Hoiberg didn't do that. Fred Hoiberg, I think, especially too, the worry was, oh, he's going to come to Nebraska, he's going to have too much success, and he'll be gone before we know it. That definitely hasn't been the case. The other side of that is, okay, Fred Hoiberg's a big get for Nebraska, even though, like, by all accounts, seems like a humble, down-to-earth guy. Think about where Fred Hoiberg's been, what he's done. He's been in the NBA in the front office as a player, as a head coach. He's been to NCAA tournaments before, and he came to Little Old Nebraska. Other coaches might not have put their ego aside and left or said, okay, fire me when things got bad. Fred Hoiberg put his ego down and said, I have to change. My system, my approach, they have to change right now. And he did. He was willing to take that step back, mentally and in his ego to say, this needs to change. We're going to change. And I'm in this. I'm committed for the long haul. You're seeing the fruits of it now. You saw it at the end of, 2 regular seasons ago. You saw it last year where that team got off to a hot start, got hurt by injuries. And again, you're like, this is the year for Nebraska. They finally have some momentum. They're breaking through, except injuries. Would have been very easy for that team to roll over. Yeah, they had a 4-game losing streak, but they got back in it. They stayed in the fight. You saw guys step up that you didn't expect before the year. And then all things considered, Nebraska's been pretty healthy this year. Without Rink Mass, here and there, Juwan Gary here and there, Casey Tominaga at the very start of the year. But Nebraska's been pretty healthy, all things considered, and you're seeing the payoff for this program. And yes, right now, this year is the fluke. They were only 500 last year. It's not like last year was some great year. It just seems like it relative to everything else that's been going on. But I said this a couple weeks ago, I'll say it again now. The way that Nebraska has been built, the way that Nebraska is playing basketball now feels sustainable. And I'll be surprised if they win fewer than 18 games next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to look at the offseason college basketball, we'll see, but it feels like this team too is like close together and understanding, at least on the court chemistry, is very high. And you got to feel like that off the court chemistry is probably is going to be more of the same. It's a big deal, though. I mean, I think when you look at even previous teams, Tim Miles teams, even Doc Sadler before him, retaining the players that you have within the program, in the offseason has always been an obstacle for Nebraska as well. You'd have to think it'd be much easier to sell with a bunch of, all those wins and momentum in the program, and quite literally the ability to sell now with NIL. So I don't think that there's any reason to believe there would be some mass breaking up of this team in the offseason. So I agree with you. The expectation, the excitement is the expectation is going to continue to be high for Nebraska basketball for the years to come. And certainly the way that they're playing, make a little bit of noise here at the end of the season. They could be a preseason top 25 team, I think, even going into next year. So those expectations will rise a little bit too.
How far does Nebraska have to go in the Big Ten tournament or the NCAA tournament, or how many or who players among the starting lineup have to come back for Nebraska to be ranked in the preseason next year?
I think you're probably looking about everybody that can come back. I think that, it's tough to jump right into there. We think about the previous tournament team. They finished they started the next season in the top 25 because they brought a lot of people back. Tominaga is a big name, or the biggest name that I think people from outside of the program looking in at Nebraska would. So, I mean, I think with him leaving, that might lose a little bit of that leeway. But yeah, I mean, I think if maybe what they're kind of saying earlier, or what Bruce said, close to a Sweet 16 run, or maybe a scare in the second round against a 1 seed or something like that. I think, and you get the majority of the team coming back. I think that'd probably be, close enough to get you in the top, 25, maybe somewhere 20 to 25th.
And again, not that matters, right? Because it's more about getting the NCAA tournament and doing damage once you're there. But we talk about getting the double bye as a sense of validation, I think, for Fred Hoiberg and his adjustment. I think the next step for Nebraska is becoming a team that's consistently ranked in the top 25. Sure, fall out for a week or two, respond with a big win, whether it's at home or on the road. That, to me, if Nebraska's consistently in the top 25 for the next 2 or 3 seasons, that's the next mark of validation.
So many exciting times ahead for Nebraska basketball, but thankfully it'll be one less day than what we thought it might be coming into today. I shouldn't say we thought it would be. We expected the win today, and you kind of expected Purdue to beat Wisconsin. Both of those things happen, so Nebraska will be the 3 seed in Minneapolis when they start the Big Ten tournament. So the next game will be Friday for the Huskers. We'll have the Hoops post-game show for the remaining games as well. It's tournament time. It's exciting time as Nebraska improves to 22-9 with an 85-70 victory over Michigan. For Austin Overman, I'm Jake Bakoven, and we will be back with the next Hoops post-game show. Also, more Ticket Weekends coming later tonight.
Attention all Nebraska basketball fans. The NCAA tournament is coming soon, and Nebraska looks to be on its way to their first appearance in 10 years. Better Tree Removal wants to celebrate the occasion and any possible success in the tournament by offering a deal. If you're in need of tree removal on your property, call or text Todd by March 20th. If Nebraska wins the first round game, you'll get 25% off the bid. If they win 2, you'll get 50% off. You must contact Todd at 402-780-1377 before March 20th.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric brings exciting career opportunities for you or someone you know. They are now hiring plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs and installers to continually build their professional team. They offer competitive pay and full benefits packages that include health, dental, vision, PTO, and 401k options. Action has created a positive team environment for over 50 years. Apply online at actionlincoln.com.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.